Okay.
Good morning and welcome to the Harlem Emergency Network COVID-19 update for June 3rd, 2020. I'm here with Carol Johnson. Carol, good morning and how are you today?
Good morning, Bob. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So we've got a lot to talk about. We are under a curfew now here in New York. We have Mayor de Blasio signed an executive order the other day declaring a curfew that started last night at 8 p.m. It goes from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and it's going to continue um, through Sunday evening. And this was obviously in response to the protesting and some of the looting and some of the police actions around the protests surrounding the George Floyd incident in Minnesota. So Harlem has been relatively peaceful in the protesting. We haven't seen a lot of looting. Now I understand that even though we had the curfew last night, there was a peaceful protest in defiance of the curfew. Can you talk a little bit about that, Carol?
Yes, last night about 11 o'clock p.m., there was an extremely peaceful protest. I caught a glimpse of it going up Madison Avenue. Um, I'm not clear on where they were coming from, but a friend of mine, one of our community leaders, was actually videotaping them. And they were marching up Madison. From what I understand, they went to 125th Street and veered off to the east. It was very peaceful. They were socially distanced, and that is the main thing that's missing from a lot of these protests. People
Mm-hmm.
are on top of each other, and it is important to still maintain your distance and make sure you're wearing a face covering. Now, we applaud those who are protesting because that's the voice of those that are not heard. But we still need you to remember we are in the midst of a pandemic, and we have to, if we don't think about protecting ourselves, we have to remember that the face coverings, I protect you, you're protecting me. The fact that people are chanting and the emissions from their mouths, if you are someone who's carrying this virus and you have maybe asymptomatic, so you have no idea whether you're carrying it or not, the emissions alone, if you're carrying it and they hit someone else and they inhale it or it goes in their eyes or in their mouths, it's a possibility that you have now created another infection. So please be mindful and let's keep it peaceful.
Absolutely. So we're taking a look at some of the pictures of some of the protesting that has gone on over the last couple of days as we talk about these issues. Um, and it's striking that here in New York, it's definitely a diverse group of people out there protesting. Um, it's actually encouraging to see white people holding Black Lives Matter signs, which a year or two ago thought I would never see.
Yeah.
But it speaks to the New York mentality, which is really is always been about diversity, even as everyone in New York doesn't feel the same way. That's the nature of things. But a lot of people out here peacefully protesting and we see uh, obviously the really vastly increased police presence. Um, And so it's been a combination because there have been places where the protests have been peaceful, but the police have been overly aggressive. And then there have been places where there have been looting. And we'll take a look at some of those pictures. Here's a picture with EMS in solidarity with the protester. Um, but as we look at these pictures, I want to get back to the issue that we have been talking about because this is our COVID-19 update. There was some figures that came out saying that there were additional 19,000 new infections as a result of the protesting over the weekend. I believe that's nationally, but I don't feel like that figure is credible because the real deal is that we're not expected to see the results if there's an additional spread of COVID from the last few days and over the weekend. We expect to see the results of that hit the measurable numbers in 10 days to 2 weeks. So it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means we can't tell yet. That's one of the part of the insidious nature of COVID is that you don't get the results right away. You get the results in about 10 days to 2 weeks. So if there's going to be a surge, a second wave, or an uptick as a result of the protests, we will be seeing that over the next 10 days to 2 weeks. And this is why we continue to urge people that if you are going to protest, as you see people wearing masks, wearing gloves. This is very, very important. And this picture is actually good because, as you can see, there's some social distance between the people here, and
Yes.
so that makes sense. If you're going to protest, try to here's here's an example of what not to do.
Right.
Locked arm in arm. They do have all masks on, so that's good. Here's somebody who has gloves, who has more people who don't have gloves. I hope they have some hand sanitizer,
I
but
was thinking the same thing.
this is way too close, too much,
Yes,
people. I
absolutely.
know we want to sing "Kumbaya" and join hands and all that, but let's protest and exercise some common sense.
And can you
Uh,
pull that picture back down, Bob? The one that said 9/11?
yes.
Yeah, 9/11 death sentence. And this is what you're reaching for when you have this type of closeness.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be careful, people. You really have absolutely no idea who is carrying this virus.
Right.
And we appreciate protesting. Protesting has always gotten us, people of color, the freedoms that we now have. So there's a lot of people, young and old, saying protesting and marching is useless. But had it not been for that and people dying, putting their lives on the line, being permanently maimed and injured and lynched, you wouldn't have the freedoms that you have now.
Mm-hmm.
But we want you to be safe. We want you to be vigilant, and we want you to pay attention. Don't let this journalistic fear tactic, get to you. Because as Bob said, these numbers can't possibly be out yet. But the
Right.
fact of the matter is, we are still in the midst of a deadly virus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are states that may be opening, and those numbers more than likely are coming from the states that are reopening. But
Right.
it's the way it's portrayed journalistically to make it appear as though it's part of this protest movement. That's impossible at this point. The protests have been going on for 3 days. How do you get the numbers when you still have so many communities that still don't have testing sites and so many people are not being tested? So
Mm-hmm.
those people have got to be from these last couple of weeks that these cities have opened.
Mm-hmm.
But we still got to pay attention.
Right, right. And as you see these police officers, you see they've all got masks on. This one in particular has an N95 mask. This other one has a surgical mask. So, and they're wearing gloves as well. So you see, The police are not playing. This sister, yeah, I mean, she's wearing a mask, but then once she's, letting her voice heard, that's a lot of emissions coming out of there, and you add that to a whole group of people, it really could be a potential recipe for disaster. So,
Right.
um, we just encourage people take protocols. Now, here are some of the scenes. This is Urban Outfitters. So there was a lot of looting downtown. Again, we haven't seen looting here in Harlem. We definitely saw looting in the Bronx, and I think we'll see some of this. This is a Verizon store.
But this is unacceptable.
Absolutely. And some of it we know is provocateurs, and some of it is not. So we're not going to try to sugarcoat it and say that nobody in our community was doing stuff like this guy here. Look, I got hats. I
Yeah.
got, I mean, that's
And a
ridiculous.
scooter.
And a scooter, you know. And this is Fifth Avenue in Midtown, and fires. Um, and look, we recognize the reason for people's anger. Um, and right now, this protest is, I mean, this live cast is not to tell people how to protest or not to protest, but the thing, once it gets to looting, it dilutes the message, and it also puts people at risk, because we're still, the issue is the over policing, and don't think that if you are looting that bullets won't be released. you know so here is a 7-Eleven that's been hit. So it's very, very interesting that how is the city dealing with it. Mayor De Blasio put what is, I guess, the most aggressive curfew in maybe in New York City history. I don't know if
Yeah.
we've ever even
Yeah.
had a curfew before,
No.
um, but I recognize the need for it. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. So yeah, it's I saw some pictures. I don't have them here, but Fordham Road in the Bronx, lot of damage. Um, Fortunately, we haven't had any loss of life over the protests here in New York. That would be the last thing that we need. And we're hoping that people over the next few days make their voices heard how they need to be done, but do it in a manner that thinks about safety. Because at the end of the day, what we're all about, what we're talking about, is how can we be safe. And the health challenge has not gone anywhere. The health challenge is still here. So we're going to need to figure out a way to address that. See if I can. I'm going to mute you for just a second and see if we can work on that echo. I'm going to switch back to the public health data and just take a look at that. We always want to have that as a part of our broadcast, because we want to give out the real information. Where are we actually in terms of our figures here in New York? And fortunately, this particular graph we're looking at here is the number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for COVID-19 like illness. We have been well below 200 a day for probably close to a month now. These are the numbers going right up to June 1st, which is Monday. Only 39 people admitted to New York City hospitals. I think this is the most compelling information in terms of getting a sense of where we are, at least from a citywide basis. Because, and even though we know that this number is there's a 10 to 2 day trail on it. The fact is that this number has stayed consistently under the 200 mark, which was a benchmark that was set by the health department. We've been under 100 admissions per day for probably at least 20 days. So the fact that this blue line has continued to stay low and maybe even dip down a little bit is an important indicator. I think it's the one that we will continue to watch, because if there is an uptick over the next week or so, we'll see this line start to go back up again, and that's the danger. So we will continue to monitor this and share this information. Um, but obviously, this is good news. We've been saying this for the last several weeks, is that the rate of um, infection has is much better than it's been. Carol, you have anything to add to that?
Absolutely. This is what we've been waiting for. But again, let's not forget, it's getting warmer. There are more people out in condensed areas like Harlem and the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's going to be more difficult to socially distance. So again, watch the times that you go out. Look out your window, see when people are moving around.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to get out and get some air, or you need to run some errands, try to do it at those times, early in the day if possible. The
Mm-hmm.
earlier the better. But we have to stay on top of this. And as people are going into the parks. I saw the park right here in my neighborhood was overflowing with people last week. They were selling dinners in the project across the street. People were
Mm-hmm.
lined up getting dinners, and there was no distancing between them. So
Mm-hmm.
as it gets warmer, I know people are getting antsy and you're getting tired and you're getting frustrated. But don't let those things fool you. We are still in the middle of a deadly epidemic that we have no idea when it's going to go away, if it's going to go away. People are waiting for a vaccine. Uh, I did read a report today where Dr. Fauci gave a pretty, promising report that there's possibly a vaccine on the way, which may be used somewhere around December or January. But still, they're testing 33. Is it 300,000 or 30? Let me just safely say 30,000 people right now,
Mm-hmm.
from the ages of 18 to 55. And they're also testing, which they didn't give the numbers or the ages, on older people
Mm-hmm.
with underlying illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're going to keep a track on that. But still, this is a personal issue. And again, remember, you may not have the symptoms, but you could be bringing it to your family. So we're not going to relax the sanitizing of the hot spots in your home
Mm-hmm.
and your clothing. And no, we don't know how long it lasts on different surfaces, but we know that on plastic and metals, like your faucets and your toilet handle, that it exists longer on those metal surfaces. So you want to remember to continue to sanitize those things,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to worry about going out and finding Clorox wipes that are 11 and $15 a container. You can make your own sanitizer with some paper towels. Simply cut a paper towel, roll in half, find a container, put a split in the top, pull that tube, that cardboard tube out of the middle, and put a cup of water, preferably distilled water, with a tablespoon of bleach, and pour it in and saturate it. Shake it around. Let it sit for a little while so that the paper towels can be saturated. And then the same way, you start in the middle of the roll, pull it up through that split in the top of the container, and they are your wipes.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are things that you can do inexpensively, but you have to protect yourself, but you got to protect your family members too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we want to continue to urge people to consider that there could be a second wave of COVID-19. Some people think this will come in the fall, as a result of colder weather. But remember, the thing about COVID is that even when it goes down, it's very, very aggressive. So, a little bit of COVID can go into a building or a neighborhood and attack very quickly. So we want to continue to have people stay prepared, even as things relax. You should remember everything that you learned during this period and prepare in case there is a second wave. And so when we get to the point where people are feeling more comfortable outside, it doesn't mean you don't still continue to keep your mask and keep your sanitizer and do those practices. The more you um, remember those practices, the more you'll be ready in case we see another outbreak of COVID 19.
Most certainly, and soon they're talking about some restaurants and things opening.
Mm-hmm.
And I sincerely hope that they don't include buffets. I saw a tape a few weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
of how quickly this infection can pass when people are going and taking advantage of buffets.
Right. Yeah.
Constantly passing. You saw it passing the spoon around, and
Mm-hmm.
people are breathing all over everything, and it's just not good. So we're
Mm-hmm.
in a place now where, of course, there's a lot of discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
and it's best to try to stay away from social media so much.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's difficult because you can't go out, so more people are going in and reading all of these different articles and seeing all of these things, and then they're just immediately posting it, trying to be the first one. If you saw it, a million people already saw these things.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time to really pay attention. The hackers are out there hitting people computers. People are losing computers that they paid $1,000 for because all these bugs are coming through. But most importantly, passing on erroneous information, stuff you have not fact checked through or organizations like Snopes.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure that this information is credible. Stop scaring the heck out of people. People are seeing things and they're just going on. And none
Mm-hmm.
of us are professionals.
Mm-hmm.
We've done our work. We've trained well with emergency management
Mm-hmm.
and different agencies. But we are professional to a certain degree. But when it comes to certain things that you see being posted on social media, and you just look at it and take it to heart, and then you pass it around and it becomes a fear factor. So we got to pay attention,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and stop getting caught up in all of this stuff. Whatever you do, spiritually, we need to upgrade that. Do it more. Just find more time to sit back and reflect on
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. This
Mm-hmm.
is a time for change. I believe this is a time for change because when you look at the way things were going, the way people have been treating each other, even beyond police brutality, the way we treat each other
Mm-hmm.
in our communities. This is a time for reflection. This is a time to sit back and pray or chant or meditate, whatever it is that you do, because your mental health is so important. We've never been here before,
Mm-hmm.
but we want to make sure that we come out of this not only physically healthy, but we come out mentally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget to pick up and talk to people and call your elders and call your people and talk to your young people and let them know why we're protesting. This is about police brutality. This is about Black Lives Mattering. And let's not forget the Breonna Taylors along with the George Floyd. Let's
Mm-hmm.
not forget, Ahmad. Let's not forget the thousands and thousands of people. And when we get out and start marauding and going crazy, I know you're young. A lot of you are young. You don't know what we've seen. Those of us that are in our 50s and 60s have been parts of protests for all our lives. Yes, we are angry, but the rest of it, the looting and just losing it in the streets, that is not acceptable, and it takes away from the purpose of our protests. And we love you, and we're talking about police brutality. Don't think for a minute you won't get locked up and get your head busted. These are the kind of things that we're protesting. So don't
Mm-hmm.
agitate the situation.
Yeah.
you know
Stay safe. That's what we try to tell you. So a couple of things we want to talk about. Carol mentioned mental health, and I want to mention a resource that you can use. It's very, very important now that our community is hurting. We just coming out of the losses from COVID-19, and then continuing to see these incidents of police brutality, seeing the situation in Minnesota brought back obviously memories of Eric Garner right here in New York. So, my point here is that we need to address our mental health and get help if we need it. Now, there is a city resource that you can call if you or a family member are having issues. It is not 911. We do not recommend calling 911 at this point in time. We weren't recommending it before because of the potential for use of deadly force when someone is asking help. But the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene has a hotline, and it's called NYC Well. And you can call NYC Well at 888 NYC Well, which is 888-692-9355. And they have a number of different services, both on the phone and in person. If there's a situation where someone is having a breakdown or acting erratically and you think that you need someone on site to help deal with it. New York City Department of Health have people who can come out who are trained, but they will not be coming to use lethal or deadly force. So if you have a situation where you feel like it's out of control and you're afraid to call 911, you can call 1-888 NYC Well. That's 1-888 692 9355. So, matter of fact, I'm going to see if I can put that on the screen so you guys can see that. Um, the other thing, I'm going to show you something else on the screen. We talked about this last week. This address you can see is a survey that is being done to talk about COVID-19 in the New York State prison system. So they encourage anyone who either works or has had some interaction regarding COVID-19 in the prison system to go to this address, bit.ly/N Y S prison survey. And if you go there, there is a link where you can fill out information. It's very, very important. One of the things that's important for us during this time is to participate in situations where we can give data and receive data. Everything is data driven, and when you can make the case about what's going on, what the actual facts are with data, that's when we can get policy changes. And so we encourage people to participate where data needs to be input. At the same point in time, we as an organization are very vigilant about finding out where data goes and how it's used. The other data point that we recommend everybody needs to do is, if you haven't done so, return your census information, because the census determines a lot of things. It determines voting power. It determines how resources are allocated neighborhood by neighborhood. And so when we're undercounted, we get less resources than what we have. And so it's very, very important that we continue to be counted, when it comes to the census. And I also encourage people to vote in the next primary. And even though the issues are not pressing, this is really kind of a practice run, especially if it comes to using mail in ballots. Right now, a lot of things are lining up in terms of what's going to happen for the presidential election in November. And it's important that we do everything we can to protect our ability and our right to vote. We need to vote and vote overwhelmingly so that we can have an impact. Now I'm going to again show that number. This is the number to call if there are mental health issues that you or a family member can have. They are trained, compassionate professionals that work for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene that can help you either on the phone or in person if you need it. And even there are situations where sometimes if you need a mental health break, that there's places that you can go. You're not locked up, but you can just get away from your situation for a day or a night or two. So they have a tremendous amount of resources that right now is really the time that we probably need to be taking advantage of it. So we encourage people, if they're having issues, to not don't try to tough it out. It's okay to reach out and talk to someone. It's okay to get help. Um, we're suffering from something that's like PTSD. We've been through a pandemic, and we're dealing with a war and assault on our right to just be and exist. And so the mental and physical strain that we've all been going through, you need to address it on a personal level, because you can't help anyone else if you can't help yourself. So take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your friends and community, and we can all get through this together. I think we're going to wrap up here. Carol, do you have any final words you want to share?
Yeah, if I can just give out this information from the Board of Elections,
Sure.
um, there is a number for the absentee ballot, which I don't have. However, the Board of Direct, the Board of Elections number is 212-886-2100. Again, that's 212-886-2100. You can call them and inquire about your absentee ballot. It is important. Don't think that your vote does not count. And if no other reason for voting, because people are saying that they don't like the candidates, well, then vote for the lesser of two evils. But you need to vote. We fought too hard to get a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, the census. It is important. We've always been undercounted. We've always missed out on a lot of funding in our areas. But now, in the midst of this pandemic, we are going to need funds to our community more than we have ever in our history of existence. And it is important. It takes a few minutes. You can just go online, enter Census 2020 in your browser, and fill it out online. It takes a few moments.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with the absentee ballot. But please invest our communities. Black and brown communities. We need you to show up and show out. And you know something else? If you go to the polls, because there will be early elections again, you will be able to go into the poll sites. Again, protection. But we must be counted.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
want everybody to just stay safe. Um, let's love each other during this time. This is not only a time for reflection, but this is a time where we can really come together in the midst of the worst situation we've ever seen in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just show each other love and compassion. But first of all, as Bob said, take care of yourself and yours.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this has been our update for today, and we encourage you to touch base with us. I'm going to give you some information. Our, if you have any information you want to share with us, you can email us at harlememergencynetwork@gmail.com. If you're part of an organization that's doing things in the community around either the COVID-19 or staying safe, or anything that you think is important, if you send us a notice, we will try to include it on our next update. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 9:30, and of course, we're always on standby if something serious occurs. You can expect us to go live and report about it. And we network with other groups such as Digital Divide Partners and Silicon Harlem and South Bronx Emergency Network, as well as WHCR 90.3 FM. We use all of our tools to be able to share information that is trustworthy and that you can count on. So thanks for listening and watching, and we will see you again next week.
Be safe, all. God bless.